August was such a feel-good reading month for me. It was like hit after hit, and I just kept reading really great books. And a lot of these I read in a day, and I think that's what helped build some of that momentum. And then more good books kept coming, so then it made me want to read more and more. And so it turned out to be a really great reading month. I was still in the spirit of summer and trying to savor the last days of summer before we get into cozy season. So I have a lot of romances on my list here that I read this month, and then a couple of fantasy. And September and October tend to be really heavy fantasy months for me, so I wanted to get a couple of these romances in before we get to cozy season. So I can't wait to tell you about these 9 books. Let's jump in. The first book I read this month really set the bar high for the month of August, and that book was Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. I loved every second of this book. Needless to say, it was a 5-star read for me. I included it in my bingeable romances video. This story is about Matt and Grace, and Matt and Grace met in college in their last year of their college career. And the story is told in the past as well as the present. The book begins in the present, and you find out that they have been apart for 15 years. They're actually not in each other's lives. And then you kind of have like a flashback to the past, and you learn about how they met, how they became friends, and then develop this amazing romance. They have such a great connection. I love these two characters together. They have such great chemistry. And then you're brought back to the present, and you realize, because of a number of different events and other things that have happened, why they've spent the last 15 years apart. There's also like a really big emotional reveal towards the end of the book, and it just kind of throws you for a loop. I mean, this book just took me on all kinds of an emotional roller coaster, and I loved every second of it. I couldn't put it down. It was easily a 5-star read. I really was put off by the cover for a very long time, but the cover actually makes sense once you read the book, and then you're like, oh, I see why this is the cover. So everything about this book is so well thought out. It's really well written. It reads really fast. The characters read really well. They have amazing chemistry and banter, and just everything about it ties up so nicely, and it's just a really sweet story. And I hadn't read a book like it before, and I think it's going to be one of those books that stays with me for a while, and I might also reread it at some point in the future. I highly, highly recommend this one. The next book I picked up was also featured on my bingeable romances list, and that's called The Lost Manuscript by Kathy Bonadin. This was such a unique story in itself as well. I got really lucky with 2 back-to-back really cute and unique stories. This one is actually an epistolary, and that means that it is written in a series of letters, so it's not like your typical book. It's letter after letter, and that's how the characters communicate with one another and the plot unfolds. But this story is about a lady named Annalise, and she discovers a manuscript while she's on vacation on the coast of the French countryside. And in her hotel room, in her bedside table, she discovers a manuscript. And the manuscript apparently has been left there by the owner, as she assumes. And so the address is actually in the manuscript, and she sends it back to the owner thinking that they'll probably want it back. And so the owner actually ends up writing her back when he receives it and says, wow, I haven't seen this in 30 years. Where did you find it? And so they begin corresponding, and they realize that since the owner lost the manuscript and since she found it, that period of time in between of 30 years, the manuscript has gone on quite a journey and touched a number of lives and a number of different people's hands, and it has traveled all over the world, and it's supposed to be this really, really powerful story. So the story from there kind of takes on this whole adventure of finding everyone that has ever touched this manuscript and has ever been moved by it to get to the bottom of how someone discovered it initially. It's such a fun and unique story. I would say this is a little bit more of a mature read. It doesn't really read like a rom-com or anything really fluffy, but that's not to say it isn't an easy read. I did find myself flying through it. I just wanted to know what happened, and it's really kind of unique, the mystery element of it, as you're trying to race and find, what happened to this manuscript all those years. This one also has a really cool reveal when you find out what actually happened. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I really like the aspect of it being written in letters. It was something really unique and something that I had not read in a long time. So highly recommend this as well if you're looking for a bit of romance, some adventure, some mystery, and just a little bit of something, different than your usual rom-com that you might read. The The next 3 books I read were actually on my Kindle because I was doing a bit of traveling, and so I didn't want to carry any books with me, so I actually ended up reading them on my Kindle. I will put up the covers here so that I don't have to hold up my Kindle the whole time, but these 3 books were part of a series by Megan Quinn, and it was about the Kane brothers. So we have A Not So Meet Cute, then we have So Not Meant to Be, and then the third one is called A Long Time Coming. And these books all kind of go together. They're about 3 brothers, the Kane brothers, and I would recommend reading them in order because all of the characters kind of show up in each other's stories, and I actually really love that about these 3 books. You've seen that done before where characters from a previous book will show up in the second book, but these 3 actually did a really great job of giving you a ton of those characters in each other's book. So I thought the universe and that world was really nicely tied together, and it was really fun to read about all of them in that way. So the first one, which is A Not So Meet Cute, this is about Huxley and Lottie, and this is fake dating. He kind of hires her to be his fake fiance to impress a client. It is so funny and humorous. There are some really quirky lines in there, and Lottie is such a fun, strong female character. Huxley is a little bit uptight, so you could say it's kind of opposites attract as well. And Megan Quinn does these tropes really, really great. She really makes it opposites attract and definitely being opposites, and she also makes the fake dating part of it really fun as well. I hate when authors say that a book is a certain type of trope and then they don't actually do that trope really well, but I find that Megan Quinn actually stuck to it and did all of the tropes really well in all 3 of these books. So this one is the fake dating, like I said, a fake fiance impressing a client, and I really like all 3 of them actually I think are kind of a slow burn. You don't have them get together immediately or even at the 50% mark. I think it's even beyond, maybe even the last third. And I found that I really actually love that. I love when the characters take a while to get together because that's the fun and the anticipation, and you're just like wondering when it's gonna happen, when that first kiss is gonna come. So I enjoyed this one a lot. It is also very spicy. You would think from the cover that it wouldn't be, but it is. All 3 of them are. And I also, like the other book, I was being so judgy because I did not read this book for a long time because of the cover. It kind of makes me cringe, but you realize the book actually has so much substance. And the same is true for the next 2 books. So the second one is So Not Meant to Be. That one is JP and Kelsey. Kelsey is actually the sister of the female character in the first book, and then JP, of course, is the second brother. And this is like a forced proximity, and it's such a good forced proximity. I love this. They're stuck together in this little penthouse, and they have some really fun encounters and some cringy moments, but like really kind of cute ones as well. This one was probably my favorite out of the 3. I love them as a couple. They read really well, have great chemistry, and I just loved everything about their story. So this one is, yeah, forced proximity, and they're a little, not really opposite, but they definitely don't get off on the right foot. So there's a little bit of tension there as well. And then the third book, A Long Time Coming, this is friends to lovers. They've been friends for a very long time. The story is Breaker and Leah. I will say this was my least favorite. I would have expected it to be my favorite because friends to lovers is one of my favorite tropes. I love it so much. And they did do that part really well, the friendship and how it built over time and the things that they have in common. It is a really unique bond that they have. But for some reason, the female lead, Leah, she just got on my nerves. I think like in the beginning of the story, she has a fiance. She's actually with somebody else, and the things that she was doing with her best friend while being with somebody else were kind of cringy and didn't read well, so I didn't love that aspect of it. But Breaker is such a fun male character. He's so sweet, he's so devoted, really thoughtful. It's just exactly like the kind of guy you want in your life, the kind of best friend that you would hope would turn into something more. So from that aspect, I did like it, but it was the least favorite of the 3 for me. So the first one I gave 4 stars, the second one also 4 stars, and then the third one 3.5 because it was still pretty decent in my mind. So if you have not read these or haven't even thought about reading them, then please put them on your radar because they were very sweet, very fun, light, a little bit of heavy, but great banter, great spice, and just an overall fun story to read and a fun group of friends and family that comes off really well on paper. The next book I read was called Nora Goes Off Script. This is by Annabelle Monaghan. I featured this in my summer reading blog because I was still trying to throw in a couple of last minute romance stories, and this one is about Nora and Leo, and Nora is going through a divorce. And Nora, in her usual life and career, is a script writer, and she writes scripts for films kind of like the Hallmark Channel. They're easy breezy romances. But what happens when her ex-husband decides to divorce her is she ends up writing a script about the story of their marriage and how it went so terribly wrong. And then, of course, the breakup. And she sells it to a Hollywood studio who decide they want to make it into a film. It sounds really great. And they want to shoot it in her backyard. So the film star is this guy named Leo. He plays her ex-husband and he does an amazing job. But when the film wraps up, they find that Leo actually has stayed in their backyard in this little tea house that she has. Nobody knows where he is, but Nora discovers him in her backyard, and he says, "Can I pay you to live here for a couple of weeks? I just need a break from my real life." So he ends up staying, and they eventually end up kind of getting to know each other. He spends time with her kids and builds a bond with them, and then they develop a little romance. But then Leo is called to make a new movie, and so he's kind of off and doing his own thing and promises that he will return. But then he ends up not returning, and Nora is like, why did I throw myself into another relationship where a man is going to put me second and not come back and just leave? And so this time it hurts even more because her kids were involved and they got really attached to him as well. And so two back-to-back kind of failed relationships, and she's just going through the ringer. But then you find out a number of different things have happened, and they encounter each other during the release of the movie, and all the things happen. And I would say this is also not like a fluffy rom-com. It does read also a bit more mature, and I also don't think the romance aspect was really that great. I did not feel the chemistry between the two characters. There wasn't much of a build-up. There weren't many cute kind of encounters and all of that like cozy warm feelings, those kind of cozy warm feelings that you want from a romance read. I didn't find those in here, but I did find it had some great commentary on going through hardships and struggles and how you can overcome those and what you do to pick yourself up. So in that aspect, I thought it was decent. But if you're gonna call this a romance book, I did not enjoy it from that perspective. So I gave this book 3 stars. I still think I would give more of Annabelle Monaghan's other books a chance. I don't think I will write her off as an author because she is talented and she did have some, decent things to say about character building and things that happen in your life. I did tab a number of the pages, so there were some really great quotes and things, and I think she does tell really cool stories, and the way she writes the stories is really unique, but I wouldn't call her a romance author because the romance element was missing for me a little bit. So yeah, 3 stars for this one. The next book I read was also on my Kindle, and it is called A Modern Girl's Guide to Magic, and this is by Lindsay Hall. So this is my attempt to start getting into the autumn cozy mood. This is a witchy romance, and it's a rom-com, like your typical rom-com. And I just thought, you know what, I'm not quite ready to fully dive in and get to the hardcore witch books and all the magic and potions and all of that. So I'm gonna do something a little light, and this one hit exactly that spot, and it did everything I needed to do to give me that kind of soft introduction to those types of books. So this book is about Arya and Callan, and they are both in a competition for this garden called the Garden of Enchantment. The person who owns it is now going to hand it over to the winner of this competition. He is retiring and he's off, and so he wants to hand it to somebody who's going to take really good care of it. And of course there are a ton of people who want this garden because it has all of the magical ingredients that are sold worldwide to a number of the other witches who make their potions, and he has some really unique plants in there and all sorts of goodies. So it is highly coveted and everybody wants a piece of it. So her grandma enters her for this competition, and she doesn't believe she can because she's always been a witch that hasn't had a handle on her magic. It's always kind of gone awry, but somehow her grandma convinces her to compete in this competition, and one of her competitors is a guy named Callan, who is this amazing magical mage, and he just has all kinds of abilities and powers, and they are thrown into this competition together with a bunch of other people to figure out some puzzles that will help the owner figure out who the right person is to get this garden. This book had every cozy aspect possible in this book. The setting was so magical. It's on this like coastal seaside town in England, and it just has super cozy and whimsical vibes. There's coffee shops and little garden shops and the cobblestone streets. Like, talk about a perfect setting to get you in the mood for autumn. And even though this book is set in the summertime, it's like the perfect book to get you into cozy season. The romance, again, was kind of secondary. It wasn't the first and foremost focus of the book. The first focus was really very heavy on the competition and the different puzzles and clues and the mysteries of it. So that was really fun. And I also enjoyed watching her kind of figure out what was wrong with her magic and how to fix it and how she can really connect with the magic that she does has, and in fact that she is enough and worthy. I love that aspect of it as well. Super light read, very easy breezy to get through, and if you are looking for a soft introduction into these kinds of cozy books, then this one would be great. I know a second one came out, How to Fake Date a Vampire, I think it's called. It came out, or it's coming out tomorrow, I think. So I'm filming this on August 30th. It is coming out tomorrow, I think. And I will definitely be picking it up because this book was so, so cute, and I can only imagine the second one will be as well. The last book for the month that I have here is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is my reread of this book. I read it several years ago. Last month, I reread A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I annotated it. So I decided I wanted to keep going because I just enjoyed that reread so much. It kind of helped me come out of a book hangover, and so I wanted to keep going, and so I picked this one up, and I've been tabbing and annotating this one as well. And let me tell you, it has been so much fun. I did not realize annotating books could be this much fun, to like engage with characters and give your thoughts and just write things on the pages. I would have cringed several months ago if you told me that I was going to be one of those people that was writing in books, and now I can't seem to stop myself. I love it so much. But the reason I'm really enjoying this reread as well is because the first time I was so excited to just get to what happens. I just wanted to know what was going to happen in the plot that I flew through it really quickly, and I think I missed a lot of pivotal kind of clues and the little kind of tender moments between the characters because I was flying through it so fast. So this time in rereading it, I've been able to slow down and really savor those moments and really appreciate them for what they were meant to be, and also pick up on a lot of the clues that were being dropped by Sarah J. Maas from the first book and then to this one. So I have enjoyed this experience so much. I have a little over a third left, and like I said, today is August 30th. So I have about a day and a half left before the end of the month, and I'm gonna power through it and finish it so I can keep going in my rereads and then get to Crescent City as well before the new book comes out in January. So I am just having the time of my life. Like most other people, this is my favorite in the series. The romance, oh my God, the romance. It is just so beautiful, and it's amazing to watch it unfurl and just kind of see how they come together. I love that. That is probably my favorite aspect of this book, but then also all of the world building and the plot building and the politics and all of the different kind of adventures that they go on, and how she kind of comes through and overcomes the trauma from the first book and everything that she went through. So to me, this is like the most beautifully written book. It's one of my favorites, and I just think Sarah J. Maas did an incredible job with this book, and it will forever be one of my favorites, and I've had such a great time rereading it. So those are the 9 books that I read in the month of August, which I am so thankful for, because the month prior I was having some ups and downs, being in book hangovers, being in a lull, being in a bit of a slump. So I'm really thankful for months where I can just kind of do some steady reading, because I find it really keeps my anxiety in check, and it helps me be a bit more mindful and kind of keep all the outside noise at bay. And so I love months like that where I can just really focus on my reading and have a really nice time. I am going to be making some autumn content now. I can't wait for it. I can't wait to get to the fantasy books. I read a ton of romance the last couple of months, and so I think I'm going to now pivot and get to the fantasy books, and I cannot wait. I am feeling all the fantasy vibes, all the cozy vibes, everything to do with witches and pumpkins and all the magic and whimsy there is. So stay tuned for that. I'm also going to be making a few more vlogs, like my summer vlog, which shows kind of simple living and me getting a grasp on my anxiety by doing mindful things and journaling and just annotating books and doing all the things. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.